We are live, 7/19/2024. This is the IPS Evening Deprogram. And if you're here, it's because you're not chasing second shooters around water towers. You're not an It's Reeler. It's Reeler is one of the new terms coined by Synchromorpheus, which we'll talk about tonight. It's going into the lexicon. The people say, oh, but it's real. Oh, really? Well, what's your evidence? You're going to point at the screen. And we'll talk about that and much more. Let's go through some predictive programming highlights. We had the major leave the world behind outage and disruptions as a result of CrowdStrike, this information company's failings. And their logo is two red stripes on the side of the C. And some have noted that this looks like the two blood streaks on Trump's face, which also looks like a snake tongue. But CrowdStrike in the news, following this, leave the world behind, sort of laid the groundwork for this CrowdStrike scenario, blackout, disruptions, etc. And it also laid the groundwork for the JFKification of Trump, which we've been talking about, because none of us here were surprised about it. We were awaiting this thing. Now here's an interesting one. During the speech last night, there was a glitch, and Trump's neck elongated, so it was just his head. One of these supposed glitches. And Synchromorpheus is asking if it was a glitch. Sorry to post this again, but this comparison between that glitch during Trump's RNC speech and the Beast of Revelation is freaking me out. In the glitch, he looked like he had a long neck, like the beast, and one of the heads gets a wound that is miraculously healed. After describing the beast of the sea, Daniel's vision. Now that's interesting. Side note, I'll have to bring it up on the side later, but this book of Daniel's got some stuff to talk about. But John sees one of the heads with a mortal wound, and he sees the wound was healed. I don't think this is a coincidence. And we talked about this, and why I don't think it's a coincidence. Something like that is within the closed system of the world stage, and when you're looking at a psyop, there are no coincidences. We want to talk about Hulk Hogan, who said enough is enough. And if you've been following the Illuminati playing cards, you know that enough is the specific card that has the Trump face being shot at, and it says our snipers can take you down anytime, anywhere. So during his speech, Hulk Hogan, in addition to, I think, giving away the trick, quite literally said, when they tried to kill the next president of the United States, I said enough is enough. Oh, well, coincidentally, so did the Illuminati, or at least the playing cards. Enough is enough. Hulk Hogan also went on to explain in what he said was a sudden flashback, how he remembers fighting in Hulkamania, his face covered in blood, staring down at Trump before he marches off to victory, making everyone a victor, the Hulkamaniacs. And when he said this, Trump blew him a kiss, because I think this was retelling what Trump just did. Standing up in front of the world, a bloody face, looking down, about to become the champion. And Hulk said everyone will be Trumpites, and this will be Trumpamania for the next 4 years. But if you get it here, we're talking about two WWE Hall of Famers, and one of their tricks is blading, where they use a razor blade and they provide a minor nick or cut on the forehead so they bleed. So when Hulk Hogan is alluding to the bleeding face looking down at Trump being analogous to this situation, he meant it literally in terms of even the same special effects. Not a coincidence. Some have pointed out Hulk Hogan, H88, has lots of connections to this Trump head wound scenario. In Canada, they said the truckers were honking. HH in their case was Hail Hitler, but the double H has a lot of significance in a lot of the stuff we've talked about. Something else I pointed out, and this was shared by many, this is from Roger Stone, quote, not a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. It's scripted, Roger Stone. It's not synchromysticism. God didn't do it. Trump was shot at 6'11". He says, not a coincidence. Ephesians 6:11, the full armor of God. I called this out the instant I saw it, that this was planted as a way to mystify, to tap into the religious impulse of the right-wingers, and it's working. But let's look back at the number 611 in a couple of other contexts. Mel Gibson's feature of the crucifixion of Christ. Again, Mel Gibson, huge Q icon. He saw Trump at one of these mixed martial arts fights and nodded his head, and that was confirmation for the Q crew, the Q pipe smokers, that these two are buds working behind the scenes to fight the deep state. But anyway, the Passion of the Christ starred Jim Caviezel, I spell it with a Q, who was 33 at the time and died on the movie set when he was electrocuted by lightning while giving the Sermon on the Mount for the 5th time. Take 5, Sermon on the Mount, Jim Caviezel gets zapped, dies. But they brought him back to life. I mean, hell of a PR stunt. Surprised they didn't release the footage. It's almost like they lied. But anyway, he was in a more recent movie, The Sound of Freedom. But look how these connect. So just to reiterate, Trump shot at 611. This is being connected to Ephesians 611. Jim Caviezel's movie with Mel Gibson, Passion of the Christ, made $611 million at the box office since its 2004 release. So there's your 611 there. And now his next movie, where he played Tim Ballard. In this movie, Sound of Freedom, about human trafficking, it was inspired by a quote from Timothy 6:11. It says, "The boy gave him a necklace with the Bible quote from Tim 6:11, a bishop with whom Ballard shares his name, but you, man of God, flee from all this and pursue godliness." Tim Ballard's inspiration for the Sound of Freedom. So another 611, and you can certainly connect this with the other Tim 611, meaning Timothy McVeigh, executed on 611, who was radicalized at Waco, along with Alex Jones. Waco, where 33-year-old Dave Koresh, who is considered to be Jesus, was incinerated. Another Burning Man reference. And if you remember, Waco was 419. Maxwell Azarello burnt himself on 419. McVeigh burnt Oklahoma City on 419. Lots of overlapping coincidences, but the 611 is a huge clue. You can see how it's all interconnected. Not a coincidence, but it's scripted. Not a coincidence. As in, there's agency, there's intention here. So I want to get into this next topic here, because we're having this conversation about whether synchromysticism is deader than the Mandela effect, or if it's still a viable explanation for what we're seeing. I'm in the school of thought, auto-hoax accelerationism, that we have encountered a guardrail blocking people from realizing the full extent of the fakery. And I call that guardrail synchromysticism, which basically says that predictive programming is not the result of human intention, but the result of, quote, something more. And so I want to explain my take on it, but let's play a clip here from a video by John LeBon called "Did Shane Gillis Know About the Trump Shooting Ahead of Time?" And then I'll respond to this and read my article about it.
Is it possible that Shane Gillis, the popular comedian, was in on this Trump so-called assassination attempt? Was this comedian in on it? Before you say yes or no, just let's look at the evidence. This was sent to me by Hilly. Thank you, Hilly, for bringing this to my attention. This was published a few days ago. It premiered on July 16, but it was recorded, they say, on the 8th of July. So this is 5 days before the event, the Donald Trump supposed assassination attempt. This is a show called Kill Tony, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. If you haven't heard of it, a bunch of so-called comedians sit around and whatever. Anyway, the point is, most young people, have heard of Shane.
Okay, he's talking about Shane Gillis. I'd never heard of Shane Gillis until now. But there's a skit here where we have Biden and Trump. And Shane makes a couple of statements here worth analyzing.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so this guy has just finished his 1 minute or 2 minute set. And now these guys are going to roast him, supposedly. Now take a listen to this.
Mine's Kim with a new minute 20. And a special, very presidential joke you did.
So he made a joke about Trump and Biden. Anyway, what's the next thing that this guy, this Hinchcliffe or Rockcliffe, whatever his name is, what's the next thing he says?
So you have a gun?
Yes, AR.
So that was one of his jokes during his...
So they're talking about a gun. And then the next statement is a seeming allusion to Pennsylvania.
Said that he just bought a gun. Now listen to this.
15. I'm gonna get another one. A little concealed carry so I can walk around 6th Street.
I do firmly believe every autistic man should own. Let's get this guy a bump stock.
So here you have Trump making an ironic, in retrospect, joke about arming every autistic person with an AR-15 with a bump stock. And this, again, is a Trump and Biden character being included in this little skit. And if Shane Gillis is popular, then I would assume that he is part of the PSYOP entertainment complex at some level, whether it's simply by being curated, being on the same sheet, or being given lines. But listen to this, and then we'll discuss what this means.
Why not?
So obviously for this particular episode, Shane Gillis is impersonating Trump. I think he's actually pretty good at impersonating Trump, I have to say. That's quite a talent. But now listen to this next part.
Is that your first gun in AR?
Oh yeah, and this guy, if you're annoyed about his laughter, he does that, apparently. He just does that on every show he's on. He just has this stupid fake... I don't know how people can put up with this. I don't know how people can listen to this in... Anyway, it's not about that. So listen to this.
15?
It's my second. I have a Shadow Systems MR920L.
Jesus Christ.
When they say it like that, you know they mean business, and...
Okay, so I'm going to just skip forward a little bit to where JLB makes the claim. They're joking about have guns, and now the guy playing Donald Trump is saying the names of the guns and the models. And that you mean business. And now here is where Shane Gillis says something like Pennsylvania. He nearly slips it out.
Like that, you know they mean business, and if you're at the Pittsburgh... Fuck.
If you're at the Pittsburgh...
Oh, so Trump almost says Pittsburgh by accident. Now, the shooting didn't happen in Pittsburgh. It happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania is brought up. So just to recap, a comedian is here looking at a costumed Donald Trump character and Joe Biden character. They joke about AR-15 guns, and they reference Pittsburgh, which is close to Butler, Pennsylvania. So what does this mean? And this is what JLB and I are presently discussing back and forth, is his contention that this must mean that they are therefore in on it. Let's take another listen here to the next section.
Even say it. And then all these guys started laughing as well. Are they all in on it? Let me know in the comment section below. Are they all in on it? Or is there some other explanation? Thanks.
Are they all in on it, or is there some other explanation? So he sets up the argument of, is it scripted and they're all in on it, or is there something else? Now, what is that something else? Now, let me go through some of his comments, and then I'll read what I wrote on this. We have 18 comments so far. I heard Pittsburgh, but it sounded like it was going to be something other than Pittsburgh, and then he started laughing, says Synchromorpheus. No way he's in on it, says Eddie. Coincidence, but anything's possible. Looks like we got ourselves a coincidence theorist here, says JLB. Well, okay, now we'll talk about this, because if it's not a coincidence and it's not scripted, then what is JLB saying that it is? And this is what I made the subject of my article. So, having played that, let's go through this. In JLB's Did Shane Gillis Know About the Trump Shooting Ahead of Time, he suggests predictive programming isn't scripted, citing an example of Shane Gillis making a Trump assassination joke right before the event, alluding to Pennsylvania. And he asks, was Shane and the other people behind him that laughed in on the assassination attempt? I would call this a straw man. Predictive programming exists, concurrent programming, where you have movies coming out the same day or right before something. This exists. This is not debatable. But some people are still asking, what is it? What is predictive programming? Is it done by something else? So Trump assassination jokes, first off, and media foreshadowing have been commonplace since 2016. We can go back further, even. Back to the Future, Biff Tannen, or the racist senator in Machete 2010. They have been killing Trump, joking about assassinating Trump for, 8 years now, plus? And these aren't just jokes, but these are feeding a narrative that has reached a crescendo. And in the weeks leading up to this much anticipated, by us, public head wound on the side of Trump's head, this was even becoming more obvious and unavoidable. Every single talking head on the right, from Nick Fuentes to Alex Jones, were just blabbering about Trump's about to get it, and the comedians on the left have consistently joked about this. Killed him in effigy, chopped off his head, kill him in music videos. Now, why were we expecting it? Because we understand that there's something else out there working mysteriously through media? No, because auto hoaxers know what predictive programming is, bottom line. We're not confused. We're not confused about the structure of media, how it supplanted religion and created our shared world view, our shared history. All of this has been created as an instrument of governance. So to suggest that Shane Gillis or any other actor or comedian needs to be in the know is fallacious. It's like saying, no way they could have faked the moon landing because 400,000 contractors would have been in on it. How many of you have heard that one? How many of you have been told, no way they faked the moon landing, too many people involved? Or I heard this one from Bill O'Reilly years ago, no way 9/11 was staged, too many people would have been in on it. Or no way the news is scripted because all the reporters would be in on it. Or no way they faked the nuke because all those soldiers would have to be in on it. This is a straw man misrepresentation of what skeptics are saying, and auto hoaxers are skeptics. Truthers are only skeptical of the other side, and they don't reject the MSM premise. The MSM presents a worldview. Skepticism needs to begin by rejecting its claims that don't have evidence, not just believing what's on the screen and then proving it after with what they show you. Right now, people are choosing how to believe the assassination attempt. They're choosing their own adventures. Oh, this was a patsy. It was DEI. It was a third shooter. It was a water tower shooter. It was a false flag. It was a hoax. And people are choosing what to believe, but a lot of the people are still debating it as though it actually happened and somebody died. Some will say, well, Trump was nicked on purpose and the other person died as collateral damage. So there's a grab bag of explanations, but they all assume the basic premise that it happened. And what I'm saying is you have to reject that premise. I'm skeptical of the media's intentions and purposes, and when they're engaged in a psychological operation, they're not reporting random facts, they're constructing stories. There may be real news events where synthetic things happen or random things happen that maybe it's not orchestrated 100%, but you can bet that when it's a psyop that has decades in the making, it's something that has a storyboard, it has directors, it has editors. They're not taking chances. But my point of it is, when they're doing psyops, they're not informing you by presenting facts as they happen. They're presenting a prefabricated story, like reality TV, but with a script. Similarly, directors. This is just an analogy. Directors don't film randomly, making up scenes as they go. They script dramas where every scene is shot, reshot, storyboarded, and edited. They're not freestyling it on these multi-million-dollar psyop entertainment complex blockbuster films, like, for example, The Titanic, James Cameron. It wasn't just a flippant decision to create predictive programming for 9/11, where, yeah, the boat's going to split in two, we're going to have jumpers, and he solidified it when he was visiting the Titanic on that date. And we have numerous examples. Like, why did they change the height of the bridge in Terminator 2 to 9'11"? When you can look at the bridge in real life, that's not the height. They did it because it was foreshadowing that they specifically implant into movies. The synchromystical say there's no way such a huge event could be scripted, and I disagree. Having been in the military, every military operation, every time you go out to the field and you're doing these operations where hundreds of people are involved, every one of these operations is scripted. The higher-ups are going over the scripts and the plans in advance. The people who don't know anything are the soldiers who just have to follow orders. The soldiers don't know what the commanding officers know. Yet, these operations get accomplished. Metascriptors and script readers are not the same thing. The group of individuals that are involved with executing something like this are writers, directors, interacting with government at a high level. The little crisis actors at the bottom don't have the big picture. Generals and soldiers. Generals and soldiers are both in the mind war, but only the generals know what's going on. The question, though, is what are these examples of synchronized messaging? What are we going to call it? What are we going to call Shane Gillis making this prophetic joke? Are you going to call it prescient? Prophetic? Well, here's what I listed. A, coincidences. B, scripted. Or C, something more. So let's start with the first one. There are naturally occurring coincidences. However, it's axiomatic to say that there aren't any coincidences in world stage psyops, just as with movies. The plots develop according to a script and not random occurrence. Therefore, if it's related to a psyop or simulated event, you can rule out coincidence. This leaves scripting and something more. So what do I mean when I say scripted? Scripted means authored, written, and performed by man. The space program is an example of a meta-scripted drama with pageantry played out by lower-level dupes. If you say, oh, they can't script everything, oh, really? Can they script everything in space? Then why can't they do it on the ground? On the ground, Earth-based psyops follow the same pattern. Directors like Stanley Kubrick operated with a greater understanding than the actors who are in the dark. Their actors don't have to know. Do you think that it was necessary that Jack Nicholson or the little kid in The Shining would know that the movie's foreshadowing pandemics in 2020, buildings falling in 2001? No, it wouldn't even make sense to them. And the same goes for astronauts who operate on a higher plane of understanding than the NASA workers on the ground, or the NASA believers. NASA's Apollo 11 flight director admitted that their simulations were foolproof and that ground control wouldn't even know the difference between the real thing and a simulation from their perspective. So that's what I mean when I say scripted. But what about something more? When we say could it be something more, it's either coincidence or something more. If you're ruling out scripted, what is something more? Something more rules out human intent. It rules out human agency. It could be Bigfoot. It could be an alien, God, a supercomputer, and we're inside of a simulation. I would categorize correctly something more as an instance of the divine fallacy, in which one adds a higher power to fill in for what they cannot explain. Science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke wrote, quote, "Any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic." And I would add to this that just because something appears to be magic or inexplicable doesn't make it so. To use the stage magic analogy, if you're in the audience, you will be foolable by optical illusions, misdirection, and other contrivances. But if you went backstage and you read the magician's manual, maybe if you spied on a rehearsal, you would know how the tricks are performed. But even if you remain seated and you're not informed about how they work, do you automatically assume that the tricks you can't figure out result from magic or something more? No. You recognize that it's your ignorance that makes the trick work. And what I'm saying here is that as the days pass and more examples of predictive programming, concurrent programming within the closed system of the world stage pile up, it's going to become increasingly difficult to deny what we're saying here, that predictive programming is the standard operating procedure for mass mediation. And its purpose is, its intent is the modification of the collective psyche via conditioning, through repetition, and marketing strategies. They're marketing propaganda in many different ways, creating this immersive illusion, but this is the structure of media itself we're pointing out. No need to introduce anything else. So in conclusion, Shane Gillis was either fed a line, hey, make this joke about shooting Trump. You know, they're sitting there, they got Trump, they got Biden, make an assassination joke. Either he was fed a line because he knew it would be funny, because this has already been a mainstay of Trump-era comedy. You know how many comedians have made jokes to his face at roasts about this? So in other words, it was either a coincidence or predictive programming. I suspect predictive programming because of the conspicuous timing. But would he have to know? Not at all. In fact, it wouldn't even behoove him to have any clue. There's no room here for, well, maybe Shane Gills was divinely inspired to say it, so he's an actual prophet. Is that the argument? If your argument is something more is responsible, then you just said this guy's a prophet. You're saying that he was divinely inspired. Metascript analysis reveals how news is bent, how history is made, and why the billions believe the same lies from the same liars time after time. If you haven't read Autohoaxology 101, I'm about to launch the promotional events for it. I think this is the next high priority. I have to really focus on it. So if you haven't read it, I do have a number of signed paperback copies here at the office. I'll ship out immediately. I'll put a link below. Let me catch up on comments. But yeah, to sum up, for someone to be involved in predictive programming, they just have to be a soldier in the Psywar, low ranking. They just have to be a carrier, a propaganda mule. They don't have to know the big picture. Just like you wouldn't have to say that 400,000 contractors would be keeping a secret in order for Apollo 11 to be fake. No, that's a strawman argument. So to answer my own question, did JLB strawman predictive programming analysis? Absolutely. Am I strawmanning synchromysticism? No. Synchromysticism rejects agency, intent, and man, but they don't tell you what they're introducing. They laugh at you if you call it a coincidence. Oh, you're a coincidence theorist, LOL. Yeah, but what are you? A God theorist? An AI theorist? What are you saying is the cause of this? Because I don't accept that media is divinely authored. I do not accept that any of the holy books are divinely inspired. They're inspired, sure, but not in the sense that, not in the way that the power structures use these as justifications for divine mandates to rule. So I'm sure we'll go back and forth and continue this conversation. If you want to comment yourself on JLB's video and watch the whole thing, I'm going to post a link below. Okay, let me go ahead and see what's happening in the chat room here. Lots and lots of chatters here. It's a little earlier in the day, but we have too much to go over, and I want to emphasize this Hulk Hogan thing. Hulk Hogan was part of the 9/11 predictive programming. He and Randy Savage, who he kept alluding to. This whole WWE thing is key to understanding what we just saw. Like, oh, there's no way they could fake a bloody head wound in front of millions of people. Oh, really? Ask Hulk Hogan. Ask any wrestler. The fact that two Hall of Famers performed identical scenes, showing their bloody faces on their way to victory. All right, Jay Diggs says early evening deprogram. Cubstar, Nat Cole, Garrett Simmons, Plain Decoded. Reverse History says aloha from Raft Ataraxia. Armin Reese says, yo, great mailing list article, Tim. Well presented. Thank you. And it was in response to the video. I think it deserved a response because we're trying to come to the best possible answers for what we're confronting. And I'm not confused. When I see predictive programming, I'm like, what's that? What's causing that? What an eerie coincidence. No, it's standard operating procedure. This is mind war. Continuing here, Ted Stryker, 2112, Napoleon, Cody, X322, Mazel, J Diggs, Pingu33, Matt X, thank you for joining, Adaptivia over there on Twitch. And phones will be open here in a bit. Ryler05 says, Hogan's heroes, Bob Crane, died on 7/13 of a head wound. There's that strange H8 connection. Now, I had not heard that. The tragic unsolved mysteries of Hogan Heroes star Bob Crane. Date of birth, July 13th. I think he died on June 29th. Still interesting because Harrison Ford was born July 13th, and he's the president in Captain America Brave New World. They were going to call it New World Order. They changed it. Interestingly, the RNC had New World Order symbolism at the opening speech. But 7/13 is Harrison Ford's birthday, and in the movie Captain America Brave New World, in the trailer, he is saved from an assassination attempt in a theater. So you got Harrison Ford, theater, Abe Lincoln reference, and the fact that his birthday 7/13 correlates to the Trump head wound, and to Julius Caesar's birthday, and Julius Caesar in the Park, where a play in 2016 was performed in which Trump was Julius Caesar being massacred. And I think the tagline is Mark Antony's Lend Me Your Ear. Speaking of predictive programming, thine ears shall bleed. Last night Trump was talking about how ears bleed. He's like, yeah, ears bleed. The physicians told me ears just bleed and bleed and bleed. There's so much blood. The movie Thine Ears Shall Bleed had just come out as well. Posters were everywhere. Sounds terrible. And, I kind of threw this out there since people are just throwing out their theories. Water tower shooter, Patsy, MK Ultra, inside job. I'm thinking maybe the shooter was a flat earther and failed to account for the Earth's rotation. And no theories are wrong. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's falsifiable in the subjective, reality fluid world stage. Everything's equally valid. Now, here's another thing I picked up on. So, Trump comes out with the bright shining lights, and his name Trump formed of these spotlights. So, a bunch of spotlights forming TRUMP, and he walks out in front of it. And the first thing I think when I saw this is Elvis Comeback Special, 1968. Because the Elvis Comeback Special specifically has Elvis coming out in front of his name, which is highly reminiscent of Trump coming out in front of his name, made of spotlights, little lights. So again, here's Elvis Comeback. You can find a few examples of it. The 68 Comeback, the Comeback Special. So this fits with the theme, not to mention the consistent use of Elvis that we have seen, the symbol of Elvis, this icon associated with Trump. And you see how it has a reflection on the floor? So you see him and his reflection and the background. Now look at Trump, same thing. You see it reflected. So again, the Elvis Trump comeback connection is another thing. This is all iconography. This is myth building. This is how they've created such a powerful psyop. This is really one for the ages. Someone was saying, what's up with these? Here we go. Secret Service agents looking like they're LARPing. And I immediately thought of the Beastie Boys album or the song Sabotage. Sabotage has the Beastie Boys dressed up like they're pretending to be Secret Service. I'm getting Sabotage vibes. Total Beastie Boys. There's quite a lot more to go through. We're just barely scratching the surface here. Okay, so this is from a few years ago, you may recall. Mark Zuckerberg, who looks exactly like Data from Star Trek as he collects all your data and sells it to Netflix, including your DMs and your browser history. Here is, and let me compare the two if you haven't seen this. Zuckerberg and Data. Zuckerberg leveraged Facebook users' data. No, I'm talking about Star Trek. See how ironic these names are? But if you look, you'll find many examples where they're pretty much the same. Not to get too sidetracked, but he's in the news right now, Zuckerberg that is, because he said, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with an American flag is the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life. As an American, it's hard not to get emotional about that spirit and fight, and that's why a lot of people like this guy. And then he took off on his hydrofoil with his American flag billowing behind him. No, that's from July 4th a couple years ago. But they really love this symbolism. They really do. Okay, we talked about the Trump Elvis, the Trump Hulk Hogan stuff, the WWE connection, the Shane Gillis.
New Ko-fi shop sale from Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm pretty sure we have a sale of Autohoaxology 101. And I added the crack gwin and the Godzilla effects to the OBS software last night. So there you go. Okay, let me make sure I haven't missed any comments. Girl says, the talented actors appear to be natural and spontaneous. Yeah, I agree. But many of the talented actors are all drafted into this thing. Kevin Mooring says, comedians and actors pushed the CV and vax. Well, I would also say comedians and actors pushed anti-vax. And pro-vax and anti-vax are both controlled by the same hand. So who's pulling your strings? If you're anti-vax, you're basically on Team Fauci. You're in the same program. And what is the program? Terrorizing billions of people, creating a schism, reintroducing the archaic concept of sin, but couched in science and medicine. And the scientists and the doctors are now priests in this new religion. So it was just a total imposition of a new paradigm, where they're replacing ancient beliefs with similar beliefs, but with a more controllable explanation, as in the authorities get to say what is a sin, what isn't, how, what is real, what isn't. They're the arbiters of this reality, and they brought in an old concept that priests have used to regulate ignorant people, but they brought it back with a new definition. So even the atheists follow this priesthood. The atheists believe in all the God constructs more than the theists do. I don't duck and cover under desks. I don't genuflect, quivering in fear in front of the black box because it shows me a mushroom cloud, but I don't believe in their God constructs. Nor do I believe in the 2020 God construct. That would be more of a devil. COVID was a devil that the atheists could believe in. But I want to point out that left and right are part of the same team, pro and anti. The auto hoax position needs to be anti-anti. It's not enough to be anti-pro. That's easy. That's thoughtless. That's low information disbelief following the alternative herd. Go to the alternate cave in the Plato's cave scenario. The people see the shadows on the wall for what they are. They're supposed to exit the cave, but truthers are led into a deeper chamber, and the deeper chamber is called anti. It's like, oh, pro is fake. Let's go deeper. Oh, anti. It's the anti position on everything we should take. Wrong. You should be anti-anti, vehemently so. Okay, moving on. Fakeologist says the RNC convention was very well produced. Oh, Hulk Hogan did great. I mean, it was very entertaining. But the clues were there. He said enough is enough when Trump got shot. That's the Illuminati playing card. He referenced an analogous scene with a bloody head done by blading, which is what Trump likely did to his ear. Adaptevia says, auto hoaxamania, brother. I like that. We should meme that. Ryler05 says, look at Bob Crane's death photo, ears bleeding. J. Dig says, X-Pac of the New World Order was born on 7/13. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2020 with William Shatner and Hulk Hogan. Fascinating. Jessica Lynn says, sure, shot by Beastie Boys was released 11,000 days before shooting, 30 years, 20 years before 8/4. Dinah South says, I heard the SS and Pix did not know how to holster their weapons. Well, it was a Three Stooges routine. It was slapstick comedy, but it was designed to look that way. And they specifically chose these portly, short, Kyle Rittenhouse-looking women because they wanted to make it look like negligence got Trump killed, that they're too short to protect him. They wanted to make it look like this was a setup or they were incompetent. So they have this backup excuse for why the patsy was allowed to get away with it. It's all part of the story. They acted that way. They rehearsed it that way. So it wasn't like, hey, we just need some crisis actors to play Secret Service. No, they needed highly skilled actors to play bad Secret Service agents. Their role was bad, fumbling, Three Stooges style SS. And they pulled it off well. But it was staged because they perfectly leaned around Trump when he held up his fist against the flag to align with the Marine War Memorial statue. I mean, the raising of the flag. I mean, that's just too perfect. It was just so ideal. All right, AJ206 says that was me. Awesome. Well, I have your copy of Auto Hoaxology 101 here. I'll sign it. Jessica Lynn says, in Donnie Darko, a character was dressed up as Hulk Hogan for Halloween, a movie set in 1988. Another interesting connection. I made another one too. In Stranger Things, you have the American wearing a Hulk Hogan shirt when he fights the Demogorgon, which represents, I believe, Russia or the nuke. I would say this, when it comes to the V issue, the pokey, I would argue that vaxophobia is worse than the thing itself. 100%. I believe that it's nocebo effects and psychosomatics. I think the fear of it is worse than the thing. This is one of their main tactics. They know they can keep you cowed and scared and stressed out, full of anxiety and obsessed and ruminating over propaganda. It's taking up all your bandwidth, changing your social circle. They can turn you into a paranoid conspiracy theorist by threatening you and never following through. This is right out of the Saul Alinsky Rules for Radicals number 9. Rule number 9. The threat of the thing is worse than the thing itself, and nobody's more threatened than the anti-vax people. They've been cowed, they've been scared, they're outraged, they don't feel heard, they're marginalized, they're censored, they're conquered. And none of them have done anything other than carry propaganda for the alt media. And they don't have any piles of bodies to show for it, no mass graves, no real plague to speak of. What a disappointment, huh? Thirst says, Trump overdramatic about the amount of blood loss. Oh yeah, he really talks to the blood was just gushing out of my ear. So much blood, covered my hands. We all slipped and fell in the blood. That's why we were on the ground. A little exaggeration, but he kept on saying the ears were bleeding. And I thought, oh, thine ears will bleed. Kevin Mooring says, today is the 201st day of the year, and the world was shut down because of Microsoft, aka Kill Gates. Look, if you're scared of Bill Gates, you're just as bad as a lib afraid of Elon Musk. You realize this. I mean, it's okay to be afraid of Bill Gates, but you're afraid of a character. He's a god construct. I don't fear their gods. I don't fear their nuke gods. I don't fear any of their god constructs, their death gods, their big scary wizards, who can blot out the sun. Elon Musk, who's going to destroy low Earth orbit and radicalize half the internet into white replacement theory jihadists. Like, no, liberals think Bill Gates is a savior. And they think Elon Musk is the end of civilization. Right-wingers think Elon Musk is a savior and Bill Gates is the end of civilization. You can't both be right, but you can both be wrong. And this is Axiom 4. This is from the Autohoaxology 101. We have one of these lists of axioms, and one of them is, if it's a bifurcated psyop, it's fake. If you can choose how to interpret an individual or an event based on your political leanings, you can choose it, whichever one feels right to you, it's subjective. You don't get a moat and feel, I feel like this one's true for me. This one's a savior, this one's a devil. Oh, I disagree, that one's a devil, that one's a savior. No. And look what they agree on. Bill Gates and Elon Musk, or left and right, they both agree, oh, there's a population crisis. Another bifurcated psyop. Liberals and right-wingers agree there's a population crisis. But right-wingers say, we're running out of people. Left-wingers say, there's too many people. They can't both be right, but they can both be wrong. So if you have Bill Gates-ophobia, you're just as bad as the Muskophobes. I would ditch the fear and stop elevating these things as anything more than God constructs meant to frighten the heavily programmed. Bill Gates is not going to take the sun away. Dinah South says, ears and heads bleed a lot, ever get clipped? No, they do. The whole premise of bleeding or blading is that these minor incisions on the head will bleed a lot, especially when mixed with the sweat. But when it comes to Trump and the ear cut, I think it was, I don't know. I'm saying I don't know. There's a number of possibilities here. None of them involve getting his ear pierced by an AR-15. Could be a squib. I still think there's a squib in the hat. I don't have any MAGA friends. If I did, I would squeeze their hat between the 45 and the 47 to see if blood comes out. Because I think it's squibby, but at the same time, it's so superficial to have one's ear damaged for such an event. But I don't think they would want to do live on the ground surgery in case something goes wrong. So I'm kind of inclined to think special effects. Fake ear with a little exploding squib inside. All right, moving on. Catching up on comments. Copaesthetic says gun tubers are exposing themselves as incompetent, visually illiterate gun experts. Yeah, why are these gun experts fooled by special effects? Like the Vegas event and others. These gun experts are the ones who should be the most Psy-War aware. But no, if they take your mind in the Psy-War, then you're nullified. And it's rigged. Because the gun tubers should be the ones most vehemently taking down, like aggressively taking down every one of these narratives established by every fake shooting. But no, all they do is they say this. Well, of course there's shootings. It's an acceptable loss. It's because of mental illness. It's because of SSRIs. It's because of fill in the blank. They make empty excuses without rejecting the premise that the guns are actually causing things. So they're actually doing more harm than good. And look at Armalite passing 73 million over to the acting troop out there in Connecticut. Dinah South says if this were real, his head and body to be protected at all times. Yeah, I would imagine he would have had a plexiglass. Plain Decoded says the Secret Service agent that couldn't get her back in her holster even looked like Melissa McCarthy. Yeah, I'm saying that was scripted. I don't believe that she was attempting to get it in her holster, but as an actress who normally plays dancing nurses, she wasn't ready for this particular role. Like, what's on your crisis acting resume? Well, I was a twerking nurse in 2020. Oh, can you do Secret Service? Yeah, I'll give it a shot. No, they don't take chances like that. I guarantee that they scripted it. Make these actresses act like DEI hires in order to stoke that flame and to lend a lot of ammunition to the right-wing culture war in that area, while at the same time giving an appearance of plausible deniability for the shooting happening, which this feeds into multiple conspiracy theories. But why is everyone talking about it? And be like, oh, what about the man on the water tower? No, we're not running circles around a water tower here. Believe me, we already pre-debunked second shooter theories. You need to read my article, The False Flag Fallacy. Copaesthetic says most 2A gun tubers are guardrailing feds. I would agree. It's all of them. It's too big of an agenda to let an auto hoaxer with a principled stance on the Second Amendment become popular. Okay, let's see what else here. Armin Reese says fake mysticism over the world stage hides the true magical nature of reality. The key distinction between false and contrived syncs is true sync. Yeah, but who really has true synchronicities that they talk about? I mean, some people do, I'm sure. They have meaningful coincidences, but that's a separate discussion from propaganda analysis. And what they have done, and I think this is intentional, is the mystic explanations are thrown in there to hide the reality. And I'm not just talking about from our perspective, like, for example, predictive programming and this stuff, but like, look at how they dressed up this psyop with religious themes. They packaged it so Christians will fall for it. And, Christianity is a form of, has a mystic view. So you have a flag that formed itself into the shape of an angel before Trump got on the stage. So that was God's angel coming down to protect Trump. So this is opening the door to, this explains it. He was saved by God. A higher power intervened. So now instead of saying the event was totally fake and unbelievable, now it's a miracle. And synchromysticism is tantamount to saying it's miraculous, meaning it's outside of man. This is beyond us, and we don't have a way of explaining it. And that's what, when I hear the word mysticism, and when I use that word, I mean mystified, fogged. Like, I don't know. I don't know why all these movies relate to this. Well, what good is that? To just walk around saying, I don't know. And we do know. And I'm saying it's a tactic that they deliberately insert into the narratives different things that will distract the seekers from the truth. And a lot of people fell for the trap that predictive programming is done by something other than human agency. And that matters. And that's an outmoded non-explanation. It's a guardrail that we're past here. Most of us are here. The Unmeted Mind says maybe he'll have the top of his ear gauged. Keep it as a trophy. Yeah, he should have a... I've seen these bullet piercings. Turbo Nurbo says, anybody see Andrew Kelligan interview with a lady in blue behind Trump? She talks about symbolism and JFK. Haven't seen that one, but JFK Jr. was there in a hobo costume with a George magazine shirt that said dodging bullets. Oswaldo says, give Trump the Pope Mobile. Rosso Haig 888 says the squib was applied by the first SS agent to join Trump below the podium. That's why his right hand was totally clean. Well, do you remember the squib they used on Ashley Babbitt? Because Ashley Babbitt's not dead. And if you think she is, you have a morbid imagination or you don't do any research. The way they performed that one was she fell onto her padded backpack, a little bit of acrobatics, and the squib didn't go off. And someone else had to manually squeeze it. And it was a pretty pathetic, like, teaspoon of blood for a shot in the neck. And then you had this other crisis actor come up, a live streamer, and you see him reach down and he touches the blood on her neck, as one does. Next thing you know, he's outside running around saying, Ashley, he said, somebody got shot. She died in my arms. Look at the blood on my hands. Look what you did, Maga. Just totally scripted, claiming he witnessed a murder and she died in his arms. Pretty dramatic, and he's showing you the blood on his hand. But if you look at the Woo's News scene by scene, frame by frame breakdown, he didn't catch her. He walked up to her after she was already on the floor, after they managed to squeeze the squib, and then he dabbed his hand in it. He didn't try to stem the blood flow. And that's sick. Even if it was real, if the whole thing was real, it would be even sicker. Because then you have a live streamer who touched a dying woman to get blood on his hands for clicks. That's really sick. Norba LA says, I'm almost ready to call in. This was not a magic trick. Yeah, it was a magic trick. What do you mean it wasn't a magic trick? Ollie Goering says that they sell the ear bandage on eBay. A lot of people are wearing ear bandages. It was a magic trick that you haven't figured out. And if you think it's magic, then you're approaching magic shows with the wrong frame of mind. Almost a childish epistemology. You probably believe in moon landings too. Kevin Mooring says, wasn't Leave the World Behind caused by a computer hack? You know, I think there were some explanations that they tossed around. I think it was suggested that white nationalists might have bombed some certain places, but yes, that was definitely it. That was one of the themes brought up. Dinah South says, space junk helmets with fight, 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 and Trump's bloody mug. I would wear those to sleep. I can't sleep without a space junk helmet. I'm afraid of space junk punching through my ceiling and braining me. Just my cranium crushed right there on my pillow. I have such bad anxiety that the mental anguish of it all makes me think I should probably sue NASA. So if you're similarly mentally anguished by the constant threat of space junk, hit me up, and if there's 20 of us, we'll do a class action lawsuit. Get a few billion. Ted Stryker asks if there's a glitch in the stream. Rosselhaig 888 says the Watchman, Ozymandias, hired an assassin to make a faux attempt during a press conference. Now, is Ozymandias a Trump archetype? Kind of like the Homelander? I don't know this, but based on my understanding of predictive programming, I would assume it to be likely true. Trump and Ozymandias. The new Ozymandias, Donald MAGA Trump. So if this was not scripted by man, if this isn't all some kind of elaborate propaganda machine, then how are we able to predict predictive programming? How did we know that going through the annals of Robert De Niro's work, we would find it? And we did. And we found something with such specificity that nobody can deny it. Nobody can deny the significance of Machete, of Robert De Niro giving a speech on immigration, anti-immigration, when he gets shot. And Trump is showing the chart that shows illegal immigration going crazy when he gets shot. That's too much of a coincidence. But then you add on to it another element. We only looked because De Niro was at the Trump trial. And Machete's 2010. When did Trump become a politician? In other words, Trump wasn't even a politician when the predictive programming for him was out there. He stepped into a role. He stepped into a costume. He stepped into what we would call a lifetime role. Al Newfall says, Tim, what do you think the next year blackout to erase our bank accounts and start the CDVC that connects to the mark of the beast? Yeah, so is there going to be a blackout and then a CDBC mark of the beast system? Not quite sure. My take on the blackout is different. I think the blackout is going to be regional, local. It's not going to be everywhere at once. It'll be the result of likely Seattle being Oppenheimered, but then there'll be a voluntary blackout, a voluntary quarantine, where the internet gets locked down the same way the world was locked down for the same reason. But this time it'll be for mind viruses. They will say disease X, Twitter, brought in so much hate and volatility and bad actors like Russians and agents that are influencing domestic violent extremists. So when, not if, like when Trump gets shot, not if, when they drop the nuke, it's going to be pinned on a collusion between white nationalists and foreign actors. Not a coincidence that the white nationalists are called the base. Do you know what Al Qaeda means? The base. So you see the 9/11, 6/11 connection, why it's so significant? Norbu Law says there are too many details for it to be a magic trick. Magic tricks are controlled. It's a magic trick. Okay, well, phones are open. What's Happening says, I took Homelander as a Big Brother Trump elite archetype and a composite. And he is in the episode, season 4, episode 8, Assassination Run. Shows his bloody face. Armin Ray says, scripting is undeniable but turns our attention away from our paths. Well, my path is to unveil the world stage scripting, to find these threads and pull on them. And I don't think it's a distraction. I think this is how you come to know what's real, by seeking. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude, this is Jurassic.
Hey, Jurassic.
Let me shut this off.
Okay, did you get?
All right, go ahead.
Did you get the message that I posted on your YouTube video about the Elvis comeback and Trump comeback images?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had done the video before you posted that.
I had a feeling after I posted it, I'm like, well, who am I posting this to? He's probably already figured this one out if you were watching it.
Yeah, I did a video. Yeah, I'd already done the video when you posted it, man. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. Did you see how it looked like Graceland, too, right after? The White House is Graceland. You know that, right? Same 4 pillars and everything with the pyramid on top.
I didn't catch that, but I know what you're saying, so I'll have to look at it again. But so you have Elvis and Graceland, and I was like, it just took me. I saw it on Drudge, and I see the reflection. I'm like, wait, that's just like Elvis in the movie where he steps out, the comeback, too perfect.
Yeah, it's too much, man. I mean, did you see? And the way they were worshiping. Did you see the other part when they were doing the? Someone on my channel mentioned this, that when they were yelling the yes you are, did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
People were saying that it sounds like they're saying Yeshua, which is, the name for Jesus in Hebrew.
Not a coincidence. Do you remember when the Obamaites would chant, yes we can, and backwards it's thank you Satan? I don't think these are...
Right, and that's what...
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. And that's what I was telling them. I said, it's the same thing as them saying, instead of saying, yes, we can, they were saying, yes, you are, like as if he is Satan, right? Because the other one, thank you, Satan, right backwards, right? And people were saying, and as soon as I said that, someone in the chat reminded me about the Devil in Disguise song that Elvis has. And in that song, it says, oh, yes, you are the devil in disguise. Because in that song, they have that.
Well, there's a few things here. One, this is the second Elvis thing, because when he was on the ground, he looked like Elvis, sweaty, with his collar up, praying. And then Matthew McConaughey got stung in the right eye by a bee. So the right side of his face is swollen. And he did the voice of Elvis in Secret Agent Elvis. And then he has a son named Levi, someone pointed out. So there's other Elvis weirdness coming out. I wanted to get your take, though, on Hulk Hogan, because there's got to be something there with the HH 88 thing, which is always associated with Trump. Any take on the Hulk Hogan thing?
Well, you know what? I don't know much about the wrestling stuff, but you remember all that stuff because you've played it, I think. How he's always in the scripts that they have on wrestling where they talk about Twin Towers and stuff like that. Remember
Yes,
that?
that's right. That's right. They're part of the whole
Yeah.
predictive programming uh, entertainment aspect of it, where they throw in so much messaging, New World Order stuff. And the Captain America movie was going to be called New World Order, by the way. They changed it to Brave New World, but
Wow. But speaking of that Agent Elvis, I did many videos on that, but because you know that Priscilla Presley, she okayed that movie. I mean that series of Agent Elvis. So she was in on it. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
yes,
And
yes.
she okayed the script or whatever the hell. In that Agent Elvis, the main people who are the bad guys, and I guess Elvis I think works for them or something. I can't remember now, but it's in the Space Needle. Even in that movie.
Oh, that's
I mean, even
crazy.
that's
That's
stupid too.
crazy because
Yeah.
I had come across Dr. Evil's headquarters and anagram. It's like, okay, Dr. Elvis, and it's the Space Needle, which I already connected with the Tower of Babel, Nimrod, Jeff Bezos. Also, there's all kinds of connections with this Dr. Evil character, but yeah, that's almost
Yeah.
too much for that to be Elvis's
Yeah.
base.
Dr. Evil is the Elvis, the anagram, and his base was in the Space Needle also, even in that stupid Austin Powers. And Austin Powers connects to Austin Butler, and Butler connects to the Butler, Pennsylvania. You know, it just goes on, the connections, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it really does. But
Yeah.
it's concise, but it's like almost like for example, there's one where it's like Trump is giving a speech last night and it glitches, so it looks like his neck's very long. And someone pointed out it looks like these images of the beast with the 10 heads, and where it talks about one of the heads being wounded. And so I see stuff like that. I'm like, that can't be a coincidence. And there's something else too.
But you,
He,
go
and you
ahead.
may remember this. He was rambling about Hannibal Lecter again. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I didn't. I still don't understand what that's all about. I wish somebody would tell me why he always brings that up.
Well, I can't. I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm suspecting Hannibal Lecter saves Jodie Foster. Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver saves Jodie Foster. John Hinckley shot Reagan to impress Jodie Foster. And the Taxi Driver scenario and the shooting was repeated just now. And the Joker movie is a retelling of Taxi Driver, and it has Robert De Niro. So he's both the assassin and the assassinated. But I don't know. I have to think it through. But I don't think it's just completely random they keep throwing this name out there.
No, I know that is so strange. But let me just tell you that the reason I called is to tell you the possible scenario how Trump would be hit again on August 4th.
Yeah, go on. Go on.
All right. So now that, like I told you, now that they've done the child's play, wound, the precursor. So now that, like I said, they didn't have to do it now in front of people. They could just do it in a staged, environment, in a controlled environment more, and they could just make up anything now. You know what I mean? But as long as they have the video to show it, right? So what better way than for them to do it as a drone? You know what I mean? A drone strike, because I don't think people are going to believe if it's another sniper shot.
I see what you mean. And you made this point the other day that this is a magic trick, and I don't think they could pull off what you were describing as easily as they could have done what they just did. But now they've already established the precedent. Everybody thinks it's real, so it's been made real. So now if it happens behind closed doors and it's just smoke and a news report, we're not going to have any room to doubt it. And then we're also looking at a closed movie set. And so there's a huge difference between psyops in an open versus a closed movie set. So the next one might be closed in that sense. We may not have eyewitnesses or any ability to, but this has created a buzz.
Well, even if they do have eyewitnesses, they won't be nearby. Let's put it that way. They'll be far enough where nobody gets hurt besides the people that were in the immediate area. When I say hurt, I mean they'll be too far away for anybody to have any pictures or nothing. But here's why I'm bringing that up is because as Trump came out yesterday, and then immediately after that, you had a story about a drone attack in Israel, in Tel Aviv, about Iran, Iran-backed Houthis, the Houthis. I don't know what the hell the Houthis, the militia, whatever the hell they are. They said it was a drone attack and one person was killed. Only one person was killed. All right. So it was a drone attack, and then you have the Iran connection, and then remember, Iran said that they were going to get Trump in that video. Remember
The drone on the golf course video, and here it says, yeah, okay, I see that. And it says here, deadly drone strike. Okay, so you're suggesting here, and it kills one person, that this brings them into play. I think you're onto something here. And drone makes a lot more sense because it would be redundant to do another Lee Harvey Oswald situation.
Yeah, and remember the first time I was predicting this was back in late 2017 and early 2018, and the very first time August 4th came around was the attempted assassination of the Venezuelan president on August 4th, and it was a drone attack.
Nice. Okay.
And guess when that guy's born? That guy's born one day after JFK. I think it's 11/23. Can you check that? That Venezuelan president Maduro.
Yeah, I'll take a look here. Okay, let's see what his birth date is. And these birth dates are huge tells. Like, for example, I brought up John Hinckley Jr., and he was born on the same day as JFK, 5/29. And
right.
There was something else about that date, 5/29. It's what is it? The
backwards date of Trump's head wound day, August 4th.
That's the one. It has a relationship to August 4th. Okay, November 23rd is his birth date. That's Nicolas Maduro.
Yeah, the one day after JFK's death.
Fascinating.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's the guy who got the drone attack, supposedly. It was so fake. You could see it, the August 4th, 2018 presidential attempted assassination of Nicolas Maduro.
So this one says it was two drones detonated explosives on August 4th, 2018. So there you have that same date connection, which we've talked about the meaning of this date, how it's consistently showing up, and then his birth date right next to JFK's death date. That has some significance to it for sure. Interesting connections there.
Oh yeah, you see what Jessica's writing in the chat? I don't know if you saw that. It says Wisconsin became a state in 5/29. Is that where he was yesterday, Wisconsin?
Yep. Now somebody said they played an Elvis song last night at the convention. What Elvis song did they play? Anybody has a? I've heard him play an Elvis song before.
Oh, I think they played American Trilogy. Is that what it was?
I'll take a look and find out. I was curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear it. Somebody told me about it.
Anyway, the Elvis comeback special's undeniable. Strong connection. I didn't catch the White House Graceland thing, and Graceland was in the news again recently. They create controversies to bring these props back into play. And the symbolism here. I think the White House, Graceland, the chapel where Alec Baldwin shot the guy with Trump's birthday, I think these are all analogous symbols. The chapel in Westworld, the Rust movie set, the White House, again, this Graceland, and then of course there's the burning house that Ye did symbolically on 2/22/2022, the house symbolizing the West. And anyway, it's a reoccurring symbol.
Oh, yeah, one last thing. This is why, another reason why I called is because I had done this years ago when it first happened. I don't know if you remember this. There was a pitcher that died. His name was Tyler Skaggs. He was a pitcher for the Anaheim Angels. Okay, and he, if you want to type it in, you can show everybody that he wears the number. Look at his jersey number, and then I'll tell you why that's important.
Okay, he's got the 45. I remember you talking about him, but yeah, go on. Tyler Skaggs.
Yes,
45.
Tyler Skaggs. He dies on supposedly some drug overdose, which is ridiculous, but okay. And he wears the number 45, so that's implying Trump. Then he was playing for the Angels, so he's a fallen angel, right? And that's what they were holding signs up, fallen angel number 45. And the word Space Needle equals exactly fallen angel in gematria. Every number is the same, forward, backward, reduced numbers and everything. So Space Needle equals fallen angel. And outside of the stadium where this guy played is the exact replica. Not exact. I'm saying if you look at the way it looks just like the Space Needle. Take a look at the Big A outside the Anaheim Angel Stadium.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. The Anaheim. Yeah. Okay. And the Big A looks like I've seen it. I actually remember you drawing attention to the symbolism. And after you died, everybody wears the 45 on their jerseys, kind of like after Kobe died. Everybody wears the 42. So here you have it, Angel Stadium. That looks Space Needly.
Yeah, it looks just like it. The outside, it's like a Big A, and the Space Needle looks like a Big A. So, so you have two birds with one stone there, because they're telling you that the Space Needle is going to be, connected to all this puzzle. Then you have Trump, who's the 45, right? And they all around the mound, they had the 45 jersey all around the mound, and everybody was wearing the 45. And he had died on July 1st, right? And then the very next home game they had was on July 13th. Okay, are you waiting for this? So July 13th, and that's the day that Trump got his, he got hit, right? And July 13th is the very first home game they had, and they pitched a combined no-hitter between like a bunch of pitchers. They no-hit the team, and guess what team they no-hit? Seattle. I mean,
yeah, overlapping.
Okay,
go on.
Yeah. How can you? First of all, just imagine a no-hitter. What's the chance of that happening? And the very first home game after his death, at Big A Stadium, right? But here's the thing. Man, I forgot. Oh, the 7/13. Why is that? Why was it on 7/13 such a big deal? Because that was Tyler Skaggs' birthday.
Okay, and the 7/13 date we've been talking about. J.C. Julius Caesar's birth date, Harrison Ford's birth date, and just kind of reminded me here too. Something I've talked about before. We had these blackouts in Manhattan that were 42 years apart. The 1977 and 2019, and they commenced on 7/13. And I think there's a few other examples I could point to, but this started me looking at this 42 thing and its association with blackouts. And we've been finding quite a lot more attached to this, by the way. But this last one in 2019, they said it put 42nd Street on into darkness and 42,000 people. So they kept reiterating that number and this concept, and it all tied to the date 7/13. And then there was this black beauty queen, former Miss USA, who jumped off the 29th floor of the Orion building, and Orion is Osiris. So there's this her name is Chelsea Christ. So Chelsea Christ jumped off of the Orion building on 42nd Street. And I remember noticing this one because it was 42nd Street where the blackouts were. And she was a beauty queen, had a crown. There was some symbolism built into this, but she impacted the ground at 7/13. So you got 7/13, 42nd Street, kind of reiterated here. So I've been seeing that number, and her name, of course, Christ, Chesley Christ. So this Christ connection. Very.
I did a video on her. Yeah, I did a video on that when it came out. Check this out. Yeah, you know what's funny? I really appreciate your memory. I don't know how you remember all that. Just like me, there's certain things I remember. But the 713, is the word lie, Lie, right? I was the
Right,
first one to tell everybody
right.
that
Lie. It's an
a long
ambigram.
time ago. Yeah, Lie. It looks like the letters Lie 713. And um, and by the way, that picture who was born on 713 was born in 1991. That's exactly 45 years after Trump's birthday. So there's your 45 again. You know what I'm saying? And then when Trump got his head wound, when Trump got his the graze that hit his ear, it was exactly 33 years after. So you have the 45 and the 33. And which goes back to what you were talking about, which I've done many videos about, is the James Brady who was shot during the Reagan, uh,
John Hinckley shot
connection.
him, and Brady's death was ruled a homicide 33 years after the event, which is
Why?
absurd.
But you never finished. Why don't you ever finish that part? You're not telling the rest of it, the most important part.
Oh, that's right. That's right. When did? Okay.
You always forget.
Yeah, yeah. When did James Brady die? What was the actual? Was it the death date? August freaking
Yeah.
4th at 73.
Yes, August 4th, 33 years later, after he was shot in the head. He was
Oh
shot in the
man.
head during the Reagan shooting. Ronald, and he gets shot in the head, this James Brady, and he dies 33, 33 years later on August 4th.
That is
Absolutely
incredible.
ridiculous.
So his homicide was on 8/4, and that whole shooting
Right.
again was inspired by Robert De Niro, who was ranting at Trump, and then in the Joker movie he's shot by the Joker, but the Joker character is basically Travis Bickle. So there's this there is a continuous thread that connects these assassinations from top to bottom, and this just seals it for me. Anybody who thinks that this is anything other than some elaborate psychological operation that thinks it's real, um, there's just too much here weighing in the script here, in the script version of it all. This is heavy. August 4th is
Yeah,
just too consistent.
it's too perfect, man. It's way too perfect, you know. And like I said, I am not sure. Like I said, if it doesn't happen this year, then next year is my final year that I'm talking about this, because you'll see in the future videos that this is, because I've talked about it already, a few videos about the reset. This is the last reset. 2024 and 2025 are the last 2 years for the reset. So that's why I believe that it's not going to pass next year. So next year is my final year that I'll be talking about these predictions. So for sure, June 11th is next year because they already passed. But August 4th, it's still, has a big chance that it happens this year. I believe that it's going to happen this year, but we'll see, how they do it. But there's one thing I want to just go ahead and talk, because I have one thing, because I'm
Sure.
looking something up
And
right now. I want to tell you.
yeah,
So go ahead.
8/4 is not long away, but yeah, the date 8/4 has a lot of significance because in a lot of the predictive programming, you even see Obama's in the picture. Leave the world behind, a man in full. There's this reoccurring theme of Obama being connected to it. Even Barack Purdy, the Super Bowl quarterback, was said to have looked like Lee Harvey Oswald. They made it a meme. So we've been expecting this thing, but the constant refrain to Obama's birthday ties into the fact that it's the 216th day of the year. That's the Phoenix number, according to Pythagoras. And it's 6 cubed, which is 666, which has all the mark of the beast connection built into it. And it's consistent, though. So that's why James Brady, being his death on 8/4, yeah, this is telling the same exact story.
Yeah, and let me just say this. Hold on one second. And by the way, his birthday was 8/29, and from 8/29 to August 4th is 11 months 6 days, or 11 months 7 days. So that's like a connection there. But just go ahead and keep talking one more minute, because I need to show. I want to say this one more thing. I know I have some connection there with that Brady. Hold on.
Okay, and for people who didn't see
Go ahead.
this, the Enough is Enough Illuminati playing card is about a sniper, and it's clearly a bullet going by an ear level. And we've noted the significance of the photo of the bullet going by Trump's ear, photographed by the same guy that shot the photo of 9/11 news being whispered into Bush's ear. And then here's Hulk Hogan with a MAGA red bandana saying, "When they try to kill the next president, I said enough is enough." This is WWE theater on the world stage all around. And then this, Charlie Cook said, "When Donald Trump gives the Republican Party its most unity since 9/11." So they've made this unity 9/11 connection. And then there's this. There's an image of Trump next to a fireman, or rather the fireman's uniforms, the guy who died, this with the initial CC. And I think he kisses the helmet with a 27 on it. But then here's George Bush, very affectionate with the fireman in the wake of 9/11, and the fireman's wearing significantly, I think, a mask. And there's a few other things about the whole fireman on 9/11 we could get into, but just pointing out they're recycling propaganda here.
Yeah, so basically, I can't find what I had on him because I have to go back and look at my videos. But so yeah, the number one thing is that he died on August 4th, that Brady, which is ridiculous. Even like I said, beyond ridiculous. And the fact that he got the head wound in that attempted assassination of Reagan, and he dies on August 4th, 33 years later. It's beyond belief.
Well, last night they called Trump the phoenix that rose from the fire. That was
When? Where did you see that? Who said that?
Kevin Mooring posted it, but we'll have to get the transcripts. But at some point in the night, he was called a phoenix.
Wow.
Great connections here, though. Unbelievable. And we're still I think we're just scratching the surface. There are things we have yet to uncover, but that speech last night was a huge tell. The whole event, though, I need to walk through it and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Some of the speakers they had, Amber Rose. Anyway, hey, anything else? I have another caller coming in.
No, that's it. Sorry about that. Go ahead. That's all. I'll talk to you later.
Okay,
Bye.
if you recall anything else, call back. Thanks again for calling.
All right, bro.
Excellent information as always.
Bye.
All right, everyone, that was Garrow. In fact, someone was asking for his YouTube account, and I posted it, but I'm gonna share it again here. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, Tim.
So what is your...
Talking about
Yeah, we're talking about... Go ahead.
Yeah, Ozymandias in The Watchmen.
Yes, Ozymandias and the Watchmen. So is that a Trump archetype?
In a certain way, yes, and I'll tell you why. And it's something that's common to all charismatic leaders throughout history, is that whenever they have appealed to people, they've always appealed to their sense of nostalgia in bringing back some golden age or making America great again. And in the movie The Watchmen, Adrian Veidt, the character that was Ozymandias, he marketed a product called nostalgia.
Oh, that's perfect.
You ever watched that film?
I have not, but I think you nailed it, because the dialectic is progressive utopianism about this new future versus make America great again, or idealized past, aka nostalgia.
That's right. That's it. It's exactly what it is. It's a formula. It's been used time and time again. And one more thing about Brady. How many people are aware of the fact that it was the very first bullet fired that struck Brady?
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the story, but...
You can look it up. Look it up. You'll find the very first bullet fired, regardless of who actually fired it, because I'm not absolutely convinced that Hinckley fired any of the shots necessarily. I mean, let's just say he did, but the point being is the very first bullet struck Brady, which tells me that he was actually the target and not Reagan. And the story that another bullet ricocheted off the car, got flattened into a dime, and then struck Reagan in the chest or in the ribs, I find that very, very doubtful.
Well, having looked at it in retrospect, I would argue that nobody was shot, and John Hinckley is an actor. And I think the facts bear that out, but they do provide all these narratives, like, was Hinckley hanging out with the Bushes? Maybe it was a skull and bones hit on Reagan, or maybe they were aiming after Brady. But in any event, there's going to be some fallout from this one that's going to mirror that event. You know, the whole Brady bill is going to be followed likely by some kind of similar red flag type laws passed in the wake of this?
Well, it certainly plays into the whole gun control agenda thing beyond any doubt, right? I mean, they're using guns for these things. They're not using darts. They're not using, well, whether it's a drone or a gun, it's some kind of projectile, right?
Yes. And
the thing about, and yeah, go on.
And what is your take on this event? Do you lean towards it being a real thing and he got lucky, or all a magic trick?
Oh, it's a trick. Listen, he pumps his fists up, the same fist that went to his ear. There's no blood on it. There's no blood on the man's hand, right? I mean, and I maintain that the squib was applied by someone other than Trump. I say it was the Secret Serviceman who first pounced on him below the podium. He had someone else do it for him.
Do you agree with my assessment that the Secret Service agents were specifically hired because they looked wrong for the job?
Absolutely. Completely concur.
Well, I appreciate your comments here and insights on it. Did you watch the RNC speeches last night?
Oh, did I ever? And a lot of people were talking about values. And I love when they pluralize that word, values. Values.
It has become something of a joke. And,
Yes.
I mean, and at this point, it's so crass. Like, I'm surprised, when Trump, after he fell, he's like, get me my shoes. I'm surprised he wasn't wearing his golden Trump shoes, because what a marketing opportunity that would have been.
Well, that plays right into a comic sketch of Eddie Murphy's. When, I don't know if you remember this, you might be a little on the young side, but during the Delirious tour, part of his routine was talking about one of his aunts falling down the steps and taking minutes to complete the fall down the steps. And halfway down the steps, she's saying, my shoe, like she's concerned about having lost her shoe as she's tumbling down the steps, which was really funny at the time. But now in context of what Trump just said, it's funny for a different reason, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Look, I mean, when I look at these events, too, I point out that you're looking at something that's been rehearsed. They're not freestyling. It's not random. And,
no, it's not random.
And so like anything you see, any detail is meant to be seen. And that's with every single PSYOP. A good director will make sure that every single frame has something and some intent behind it. There's nothing random about it. So what is the meaning behind this stuff? I mean, you can analyze it ad nauseum. I think there's a great deal of symbolism in this whole event, obviously.
Of course,
but
ready?
The clues.
How about this? Shoes. Okay, let's look at shoes. You can't find a much more potent symbol of prestige than shoes these days.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they were a huge prop in this one, but like for example, the alignment with archetypes. So the war memorial of the soldiers leaning forward and raising the flag. They recreated that. They recreated it using the SS actors, and so that's what I mean. That this is too contrived to be anything but a magic trip. And I have another person trying to call in. Anything else?
Yeah, one last thing, ready? Well, that you're speaking of an icon of victory, right? That's an icon of victory.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, ready? What is the most famous shoe associated with victory? What's that brand called?
You tell me.
Nike. Nike is the angel of victory.
I see that. Interesting. Nike is a goddess that personifies victory. All right. Well, hey, thank you for the call, and call
You're
back
welcome.
anytime. All right, we have a few more moments. I have a few others trying to get in. I want to make sure we get through all of the predictive programming breakdowns. We talked about 611 and how that's been force memed into the right. We talked about the symbol of Hulk Hogan, or the symbolism in his speech where he referenced the Illuminati playing card, and he recalled an anecdote where his face was bleeding on the way to victory, which I think is a giveaway that Trump also bladed himself. We connected the comeback special to the Trump at the RNC, and I have to watch the whole thing. As the first caller pointed out, there's also an allusion to the White House / Graceland, which are analogous structures symbolically. I've been trying to figure out this Hannibal Lecter thing. And Jodie Foster seems to be a connecting piece between Taxi Driver. Again, Reagan and Brady were shot because John Hinckley was supposedly trying to impress Jodie Foster. And Trump keeps bringing up Hannibal Lecter. Why is Donald Trump so fixated on Hannibal Lecter? The fictional character was referenced by the former president during his RNC speech. It's kind of a mystery. And I found this. Jodie Foster reveals Robert De Niro almost played Hannibal Lecter. And there's some Robert De Niro Trump overlap in the programming that we've been acknowledging here. So, for example, Robert De Niro plays a young Don Corleone, Godfather, and when he was ranting in front of the White House about Trump in his full Trump derangement syndrome glory, he was saying that Trump's a destroyer. He's going to destroy everything. And that's code. The destroyer is a reference to Revelation 9:11, Abaddon, or a bad dawn. And ever since the trials began, Trump had been referred to increasingly as a mafia don, as a bad don. Violet found this. This is huge. The most important 42 miles in American politics. So yesterday we were talking about predictive programming with Palestine, Ohio, and the movie White Noise, which foreshadowed a train derailment and a toxic airborne event. Life imitates art, or psyops imitate art. They perform these things right out of the movies. And I said, this has got to be foreshadowing for what's going to happen in the Middle East. And this is before the 10/7 thing. But again, the headline here, the most important 42 miles in American politics. The stretch between Butler, Pennsylvania, where Trump was shot, and East Palestine, where the train derailed. So why is this the most important 42 miles in American politics? The drive between Butler and East Palestine. A couple of other things. The derailment in East Palestine was compared to the movie, and extras from the movie White Noise were evacuated because of the toxic airborne event that happened in real life. So you had extras in the movie becoming crisis actors in the psyop. And this was such an obvious example of predictive programming that you had media coming out to debunk it. Oh, it's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. Nothing to see here. No, it's not just a coincidence. It's scripted. Now it goes on here to say, this region is filled with people who have given up hope. The despair is chronicled as bitter or angry. Presidential candidates from either party have rarely showed up in places like East Palestine or Butler. This 42-mile stretch is one, like many across the country, forgotten blue lines on the U.S. maps. So it's making this statement about these areas, about East Palestine and Butler, but the significance of these two events also connects the headshot to Butler, Pennsylvania, and the headshot to the nuke, or the mushroom cloud. And these are overlapping themes that we've been seeing reference here. And I think there's a few other points about this place, about this Butler / East Palestine we could probably discern here. I'll continue to dig into this, but interesting that East Palestine would show up again after this. I guess the other point I'd bring up is that the movie White Noise is very similar to Leave the World Behind in its theme, except it's a regional thing. It's only in that area, but it's blackouts. Nobody knows what's going on. I think there's a few other things about it that I came across. Like if you watch the movie White Noise based on a book of the same name, it focuses on the issues of the 80s, highlighting consumerism. I think this is the one. It focuses on a few things, though, on news media and how it's a lot of noise and people don't trust authority, and this is the real problem. And if you look at the family portrayed in this movie, they're just like the Griswolds, from National Lampoon Family Vacations, where they would kind of glorify the idea of the American family bonding on a road trip. And in contrast, this family, which it looks just like the Griswolds, they're at a time where you can no longer just get in your car and drive across the country. It's bad for Gaia. It's a different world. It's no longer idyllic. So it was a very dystopian piece as well. Thank you, Norbo says. So nobody got the L.A. Boheme connection at the end of the RNC with La Boheme in the Sum of All Fears mentioned by Q. No, I haven't seen that, but I'll look. I found the clip. Sum of All Fears is Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy is one of these metascripters. On 9/11, 2001, in the space station, they were supposedly listening to A Sum of All Fears, the audiobook. And then 9/11 happened, and one of the astronauts looked out the window and said, "Hey, look, it's just like the book we're listening to." Have any of you heard this? This is so ridiculous. This is the only astronaut who was on the ISS at the time. It was just him and some cosmonauts. But he was literally listening to Tom Clancy while he was in space. He also had a trumpet with him, and apparently he played taps right after. We'll have to go back and look at some of the ridiculous eyewitness accounts. There was an older white noise with Michael Keaton, which had to do with communication with the dead through what do they call it? You have some kind of ghost hunters communicating to people with electronic devices, and they hear demons on the other side tormenting people. Interesting movie, because it brought up this idea of this like serial killer, and whenever he would be active torturing someone, there would be more activity when they're listening to the ghosts on the other side, as though the violence, the torture summoned the demons. It was kind of a dark movie. Ryler says Trump Vance sounds like Trump Pence to me. If I had to guess, I'm guessing Kamala Harris is on the menu based on the programming inside of the movie series Fallout, which we've already talked about, the blood spot on the side of the head. Here's an image of Donald Trump and the Hulkster from 1988. Okay, I think we've covered pretty much everything I wanted to. The RNC opened up with a prayer to the angel Saint Michael. This is highly significant. If you look back at MAGA and the brainwashers behind it, people like Michael Flynn having people pray to the Archangel Michael, well, what's wrong with that? Well, maybe nothing. Maybe there's nothing wrong specifically with praying to this angel. But the thing is, the I Am Temple is this doomsday cult from the late 80s, and many of their teachings have worked their way into the Q New Age sewage, which is what Q is. It's a lot of New Agey stuff. And their whole cult was based on channeling the angel Michael. And this cult, called the Summit Lighthouse, or the Church Universal Triumphant, I refer to it, this MAGA thing, as the Church Universal Trump, because they've repackaged this doomsday cult. All of its members went into bunkers because they thought China and Russia were going to nuke them. It didn't happen, but that's because they stayed up all night praying and chanting about it. So you could credit them with having saved all of our lives. But they would routinely pray to the Archangel Michael, and there's this viral video of a bunch of MAGAites and General Flynn channeling the angel Michael and his 7 rays. Just strange stuff, nothing that we're not used to here. But here is the opening prayer at the RNC.
Heaven. And President Trump, Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection.
Now, I think there's some significance to this that also ties into another theme with Saint George slaying the dragon. There's this recurring theme, but I've seen Michael the Archangel also invoked. They talk about the armor of God, Ephesians 6:11. These are just kind of staple little symbols that they invoke. But yeah, bringing up Michael here is kind of interesting.
Against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruins of souls.
Now, you only hear this type of rhetoric on the right. Because the right wing, traditional concepts of sin, traditional religion are still holding on to this. And they're all about moral panic. They're all about this archaic concept of sin and good versus evil, Jesus and Satan. But the left wing has left all that behind. They look down on it, but they've embraced new analogous replacements for it. So for the left, they might scoff at this, but they have a new concept of sin, they call it the virus. They have a neo-eschatology, they call it climate change. They have a heaven, they call it space. Their priesthood are scientists. That's a one-to-one parallel across the board. So you have trad right, progressive left, two sides of the political horseshoe, opposames, as David Icke would say. Ryler05 says the Hulkster bloodied his head at SummerSlam 2005 against Shawn Michaels. Yeah, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, what a name. That was the I Am Temple. Elizabeth Clare Prophet. Dinah South says maybe he was forced to select Vance and was threatened and had to act out this fraud. Well, that's one of the guardrail theories, is that they shot at him as a warning, accept Vance or else. But I subtract. I take the negative route. I don't trust the screen. I have no faith in media. I have no faith in Anderson Cooper, Megyn Kelly, none of them. None of them I just don't find them inherently trustful because I think they are reality compromised. I think their head's in the box and they're in no position to tell me what's real and what's not. So when I see these various stories coming out, I'm like, anything that says there's more to the story than what the news said, that's MSM plus. That is accepting what they told you. Oh no, there's more to the lie. And if I add more information, then I'll arrive at truth. Nope, you can't come to the truth until you delete the lie first. But if the lie gets a pass, whatever you add onto it is just gravy. It's just like seasoning. Just add on to it. You're not taking away from the fundamental flaw here. So MSM plus is, oh yeah, what we saw on TV happened, but there was a shooter on the water tower they didn't show us. And there was a shooter in the bleachers. And there was a fill in the blank. You can add in all kinds of stuff. But at the end of it, you're left with believing and then some. And I say, take the negative route, the subtractive route, MSM minus, subtract what you can't verify. And that might require that you wait a few days for more information. And if you can't verify it, don't believe it. So if I don't believe he got shot, why would I be looking into second shooter theories? Only the people who got duped are doing that. They're running laps around the water tower, looking at pictures of ladders, wondering about malfeasance, talking about the deep state. They're all lost in fantasy. That is an alternate reality game. And I'm not playing. I think I opened up Autohoaxology 101 with the War Games quote, which is, strange game, the only winning move is not to play. And that refers to mutually assured destruction, specifically. In the context of the movie, it's a military supercomputer talking about nuclear war. But I'm saying that this can be applied to Psy-War, to the war in your mind. And the Psy-War is a strange game, left or right. If you take a position, if you assume the screen isn't lying, if you enter the alternate reality game, you automatically lose. It's a rigged game, and the only winning move is therefore to not play. And we're not playing. We're not engaged. This is inactivism. This is pure ivory tower. All right, next caller. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, I know you're getting off soon, but I just wanted to chime in with that HH on Hulk Hogan. It's 88, right? So Trump in simple English gematria is 88. And then after you showed that photo of him and Trump being, taken in 1988, I was like, damn, what are the chances?
Okay, and Donnie Darko takes place in 88 when Biden was running. And the whole thing about Biff Tannen and Back to the Future is that to travel through time, you got to go 88 miles per hour. So there's plenty there. Appreciate that. Good find.
Yeah, no problem, man. And I don't know, another predictive programming for 9/11 and possibly COVID. I know it's a little off topic, but did you ever see the episode in Seinfeld called The Sponge?
Seinfeld the Sponge. No, what's in it?
So it's the episode where Kramer, I think Jerry or George is running a marathon, and Kramer is pressured to wear a ribbon.
The AIDS ribbon.
But
I love that one. That's my favorite episode. Yeah, the AIDS ribbon. I love that scene.
Exactly. Well, check this. So I looked it up, and I was like, there's got to be a connection, because everyone uses that for like their COVID like thing when they compare them. So I looked it up, and sure enough, it was the 119th episode, and it aired on December 7th, 1995. So I was like, oh, wow. Plus, it kind of reminded me of 9/11 when everyone wore their yellow ribbons in their windows or on their cars or just on themselves after 9/11 as well. So I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Excellent finds all around here. So you got the Pearl Harbor date, you got the 119, and in the episode, it's all about wearing the AIDS ribbon, and he's pressured into wearing it. And that was used as a description for mask Karens trying to force you to wear a mask. And
Exactly.
Yeah, great finds here, very nuanced, and it shows you how even the nightly TV, at a very none of these actors knew. Oh, this is going to be the 119th episode. They wouldn't have to know the full extent of the.
Yeah, dude, it's
not at all.
It's all compartmentalized. I mean, I was just watching an FBI agent give remarks on a case that's going on in Massachusetts. And anyways, he was just saying how he knew a wife and a husband who were both FBI agents. And the husband didn't realize his wife was working on a certain case until he saw her on the news when they were apprehending their target in the case. And he was like, wait, I had no idea you were on that case. And I was just like, what the hell? It's just like, dude, they can compartmentalize everyone in any way, shape, and form. And like a lot of these people just don't realize it because they don't want to think like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe they don't know. It's naivety. But I was in the military, and I worked in a group where there were people with security clearances that could go to certain areas, go in certain vehicles, certain tents that I could not. So I was used to the compartmentalization. But so you point out that the Sponge episode with the AIDS ribbon is the 119th episode that aired on Pearl Harbor Day. Well, check this out. There's a show called The Office, and their episode that came out 10 years before the pandemic on 3/11/2010. Somebody had flu, and everybody was freaking out because somebody was wearing a mask at work. This was predictive programming and even had a song, Cats in the Cradle, with flu references and kids homesick with flu. The point of it is, this is 10 years before to the day. Guess which episode it was in the comedy series The Office?
Well, The Office had a lot of episodes, but I don't know if they had 900 of them, did they?
No,
was it the 911?
The 119th, just like the one you cited.
Oh, 119th. Okay, perfect.
That's kind of weird, isn't it? Another 119th.
Exactly, man. I mean, these shows, these metascriptors, do you think the metascriptors know what they're doing half the time, or do you think they're being fed kind of like that comedian you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I happen to think that it's like soldiers and generals. There's ranks, there's a need-to-know basis in the mind war, and there's no reason to think that the people at the bottom are anything more than order followers. And what is an actor but an order follower? Say this, do this,
exactly.
Look here. And we have so many examples of the season numbers and the episode numbers, like 311. Season 3, episode 11 of Colony has a ground zero in Seattle for a reset of society. We have numerous examples. The Assassination Run episode of The Boys, season 4, episode 8, is so consistent that this is high-level planning, and we're just examining the architecture of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy, too. I mean, just speaking, because Colony, what's that? Is that Netflix or Amazon?
Netflix. And this is where this is the one, 311, where society has a reboot after an alien invasion, and it starts in Seattle's the ground zero. And I'm like, that's one of the clearer examples we have.
Wow, crazy, man. Well, Sam, dude, always a pleasure listening to you, especially while I work and get through my day. So Keep it up, man, and I'll keep listening. And yeah, you have a good weekend.
Thank you. Likewise, and appreciate the call very much. Thank you. All right, another excellent caller. Tomorrow is Infinite Plane Saturn Day, and we'll be opening up phones for all kinds of topics. Great call. We have so much. Yeah, Josh Lebsock says 88 live viewers. Yeah, Kramer getting beaten by the ribbon supporters. So what the caller reference here is an episode that we used to play in 2020, where Kramer doesn't want to wear the AIDS ribbon, but he's marching with them. And it becomes this kind of he's just trying to be himself, and he calls them ribbon bullies. So that is the 119th episode, and the ribbon bully thing. And then he was connecting the ribbon to 9/11 and the people with the ribbons. Seinfeld ribbon bully. I'll find that clip. It's pretty good, actually. Okay, here we go. Seinfeld ribbon clip. This is what the caller was referencing, and it's the 119th episode.
Cosmo Kramer.
Okay, you're checked in?
Yeah, thank you.
Here's your AIDS ribbon.
No thanks.
You don't want to wear an AIDS ribbon?
No.
But you have to wear an AIDS ribbon.
I have to?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't want to.
But everyone wears the ribbon. You must wear the ribbon.
So he gets chased down by people who find out he doesn't want to wear the ribbon. They get to be basically what we experienced in 2020. Many of us dealt with this. I had many experiences with mask bullies, and I realized this is a losing game here. Sometimes it's almost easier just to blend in. The power of peer pressure is what they're mocking here.
Beat the clock. There's a lot of pressure there.
Here is
Hey, where's your ribbon?
the march.
Oh, I don't wear the ribbon.
You don't wear the ribbon? Aren't you against AIDS?
Yeah, I'm against AIDS. I mean, I'm walking, aren't I? Just don't wear the ribbon.
Who do you think you are?
Put the ribbon on.
Hey, Cedric, Bob, this guy won't wear a ribbon.
Who? Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon?
All right, clip from Seinfeld, episode 119. And then again, St. Patrick's Day, The Office, the 119th episode, but the 19th episode of the season. So you have 19, 119, came out on 3/11. Now, what's it about? It has to do with flu and a mask. Here we go. Aaron is sick, and Andy's waiting to see Aaron, so he feigns sick. So he's someone faking being sick. They're watching TV, and then it goes on to the weirdness with the person wearing the mask at work. And there's a song they play, some obnoxious rendition of, Cats in the Cradle, and the lyrics of that song have to do with flu and sickness and the like. But this was a 3/11/2010, 10 years to the date episode. Thanks for the clip, says Dana South. Yeah, I thought you might appreciate hearing that. We played it a couple of years ago. I haven't seen the full episode, but... Alright, here's an image of the Secret Service doing the Beastie Boys routine, sabotage. You might want to follow me at minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. I put everything we talk about, all the clues, I put it all here so you can reference it. So for example, we've been talking about Hulk Hogan and the Enough is Enough card. All my receipts are at minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. Now, this connection may or may not be that strong, but there's a theme here. In the show Hot Skull, it's about a pandemic of mind viruses, and everyone has to lock down. And in order to not catch the mind viruses, the government mandates that you wear earplugs. And I watched the series. It's obviously about conspiracy theorists, the ones who don't wear their earplugs. And they're able to spread these mind viruses to those who aren't protecting themselves. But this goes along with this general theme of quarantining the designated mentally ill. The designated mentally ill being the conspiracy theorists, which ties in to a number of broader themes, but all of the school shootings, all the mass shootings tend to point fingers at the internet and conspiracy theories radicalizing people. All right, I have a few comments I want to get through from my main channel, Infinite Plane Society. The Grievance Gordy Show says, I'm going to go ahead and assume all comments are data mined to snuff out any auto hoaxers when it comes to the Trump incident. Yep, good point. We're being spied on or recorded or analyzed, I'm sure. The damage control that we see is pretty obvious these days. You got people like Joe Rogan even saying the nukes look fake. Like they've been getting some kind of a thumbs up. Go ahead and start taking over these conversations before people who know what they're talking about get a hold of it. David Polk says Tinkerbell definitely dotted the I. I watched it every Sunday my childhood, and I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. Tinkerbell dotted the I with the wand, and this was accompanied by a sound effect, which is ingrained into my mind. Okay, David Polk remembers Tinkerbell dotting an I, and there was a tinker noise, or some kind of a tink, or sound with it, and it's etched into his mind. I guess it's a Mandela effect, I don't know. Does anybody have Richard Simmons's headband etched into their mind? Because apparently he had one, according to the Doozled. Pete Shea says, new sun and CERN can restart, Tim, on August 4th. See the uncrowning of the King Corona, the killing of the king. There are trails today. The moon looks wonderful. I think I got a new sun. By the way, Donald Trump has a good connection with the number 88. It happens that 88 divides into 2024 23 times. Okay. Thank you, Pete Shea. KM Tisher says, I'm new here. Who's the Garrows guy? What's his channel? I sent that person a link. Nick Thunda says, do you think they're setting us up for a future purge? Yes. Yes, I do. And one of the reasons why is the Weeknd's video, Save Your Tears. So the Weeknd was a subject here of our talks because we noted his weird Super Bowl halftime show where he had the head wound, and it was a theme with him, this whole head wound theme. Well, this is followed up with Brock Purdy being Oswald. And so we were making these connections already. Again, the Weeknd's name is Abel, like Abe, Abe, Lincoln, or just Abel, Cain and Abel. So there's a lot with the Weeknd in telegraphing this live televised event. But the Weeknd was also heavily represented in 2020 with Blinding Lights, one of the top songs, replete with symbolism. We looked into it. But the main thing was, in the video, he was driving around what seemed to be a locked down Las Vegas. So we've been following his music. And in this video here, it's called Save Your Tears. The Save Your Tears video has as its theme a headshot at the very end. But it's not just a headshot, as I'll show you. But a couple of points here. It's very purgy. Save Your Tears is very purgy. So I think one of the meanings might be that the worst is yet to come. But let me play this part here because we're talking about a Super Bowl halftime performance with the bloody head wound. He gets this award with the head wound. And I believe he got the award, what was the date? Because there was something to the date where he received it. Here's an image of him with his head wrapped up with his bandaged face. Oh yeah, it was on 11/22. So on November 22nd, he gets on JFK's head wound day, he gets this award. And again, this is all part of this story they've been putting out there. He's one of the propaganda messengers. And so one of the main themes of the story is what? A fake headshot. Well, here's Save Your Tears, and look at the last 30 seconds of the video. Gun to his head. And by the way, the scenery around here, it's pure Kubrick. It's all eyes wide shut. And he pulls the trigger, and it's fake. And everybody claps. So what's the meaning of it? I think you have to be in the eyes wide shut club. You have to be pretty high up to be informed about what these things mean. Or you have to be Metascript decoders. So if you check out the video, it's got Kubrick all over it. Headshot, fake headshot. Very layered, but very interesting overall. Okay, let's see here. Russell says, problem, sweat into the oldies. Not even one of the series packaging photos shows Simmons with a headband. Well, there are people who claim to remember it. And the reason why I even harp on the Mandela effect is that when you say, I remember, you are bearing witness. I am a witness to this. And what does it mean when a person says that they're a witness to something that doesn't exist? Are they lying? Yeah, but they're lying to themselves. But how? And this is where it gets tricky, because lying is an art, and it's been refined. We live in a world of lies, not hyperbole, not an exaggeration. Everybody's a liar. Every programmed person is a liar. They lie to themselves, unwittingly, with the aid of logical fallacies, propaganda, and marketing, and they lie to others, and they share those lies. They teach these lies. They live by these lies. And most people lie along to get along. Because if you contradict a lie with truth, you get chastised by the liars. Most of us know how this place is rigged. And that is, again, not an exaggeration. And when I use the word lie, it's a complicated word. It's very simple, but at the same time it's not, because you have different categories of liars. The programmers are a different kind of liar than the programmed. The process of deprogramming is the process of unlying, primarily to yourself, and then ceasing to lie to others once you've been made aware of what is false. The word unlying was introduced to me in the movie The Room, where a child is raised in a shed because he and his mom are captives, and he doesn't know it, and his mom doesn't tell him till he's 5. And then she says, it's time to escape the room. Just like the people on TV, you're going to go out there. And he says, you're lying to me. There's nothing outside of room. And she says, no, I had to lie to you to protect you. But now I am unlying. Interesting concept. So when you're looking at someone who's Mandela affected, they have accepted a certain kind of lie, where they lie to themselves, or they conflate a prompted imagining with an authentic memory, but in there is a lie. Sometimes you have to look very closely to find it. Sometimes it's sneaky. Like, for example, what are they spraying us with? What is that 5G tower doing to our brains? When you ask questions that include a premise, when you load the question, the person who repeats the question is now repeating a non-established premise that was smuggled in there. So many of the lies are smuggled into you. That's how the programming works. That's why they want you to have mind aids. They don't want you to have a mental immune system to screen out lies. And we do. We screen out lies with something called skepticism, which means withhold belief until you have facts so you can know it. So you don't become a believer trusting a source, but you become a knower or agnostic on any given topic. Why would you settle for less? It's the information age. You shouldn't be running around confused. You should know what you know, and then know why you don't believe what you don't believe, even if everybody else does believe it. Gematria 101 says, Japanese president was shot. His name was Shinzo Abe. Yeah, Abe Shinzo, former Japanese PM. He's basically their version of Trump. He refused 1.6 million doses of the vax, as your 1.6, and he was shot a couple of days after the Georgia Guidestones blew up. We call him Squibby Abe because it was an obvious squib. We considered it foreshadowing for the Trump head wound, and we noted that the name is definitely consistent. Abe, like Abe is Abe Lincoln. Okay, moving on. Salty says, anyone can purchase that peanut butter. What are you talking about? Mango says it wasn't Jif. Well, when you look at Jif or Jiffy, the problem is this. There's no room on the label to squeeze the whole word Jiffy. So it's Jif. And even if it was Jiffy, you would read it as Jif because the Y wouldn't be visible on the screen. There are a lot of people who think Chick-fil-A deleted the K, or that the reality shifted, and Chick-fil-A used to have a K or didn't have a K, and they're confused about the K. Well, no, Chick-fil-A has a K. Always has. Look at the sign. But if you buy French fries from Chick-fil-A and you get the box, when you look at the box of their waffle, crispy outside, potato fries, cooked in canola oil, you'll often see on the wrapper, even on their burgers, it's CHIC. The K is on the other side. And that happens so often that you can understand that if you're always looking at only this particular angle and the K is wrapped around the side, you might not notice that the K is there. And where are you forming your memories from? Are you memorizing it based on the sign that you see, that you glance at when you're pulling in, or on the French fries in front of you? So here is an example. These are Chick-fil-A waffle fries. CHIC, there's no K. So you can understand how someone might create a false impression. So they are technically correct. I remember it without a K. So then you get the Mendoozler. Hey, you want to join my club? Find out if you're a reality shifter. Do you remember Chick-fil-A with or without a K? And you're like, yeah, I remember it with no K. No, it has a K, reality shifted. You show them the logo, their minds are blown. But sometimes reality can be ambiguous. Sometimes you need more information. And here's one more point I need to make. Every Mandela effect is a binary. It's either with the K or without. There's no other alternatives. Why is that? It's because it's a trick. It's a sleight of mind. It's not about reality shifting. Reality wouldn't merely shift into a binary if reality's fluid. And it's worth talking about this because the people who are engaged in this are under a form of a spell, but it's basically they're lying to themselves, and they're justified in presenting these lies to others because they don't recognize that what they're doing is lying. When you're advancing a lie or a mistruth, you got to take responsibility for it. You're either a witting or an unwitting liar. Which is worse? Well, the witting liar, you could argue, is worse. Who does more damage? Unwitting liars. Because if you look at the number of programmed versus the programmers, the programmed, that is the unwitting liars, far outnumber the deliberate liars. Okay, there's so much going on. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow when we go into Infinite Plane Saturday. Girl says, I have residue that shows Kit Kat with a hyphen in the middle. Residue. So if you have residue, you should put that in a museum. You should put it on eBay. I would buy it. I would buy a Kit Kat wrapper from another dimension. Kit Kat does not have a hyphen, but according to the Mandela affected, it used to. You can find examples of it with the hyphen if you search Mandela effect examples. And this is the gaslighting. This is the trick, actually. This is how people get fooled. So now you're presented with something that doesn't exist and the real version in the same screen. Your subconscious is not processing these as, oh, that one's real, this one's fake, scrap that one. No, both of these are going into your memory banks. Now, when somebody says, hey, do you remember the Kit Kat logo? You're going to have both of these, because of recency, playing such a role in recollection. These are going to be brought to mind first. This is called retroactive interference, where the interrogator presents you the option that isn't true to give it equal weight to the one that is true. And then they gaslight you. Are you sure you remember this one? When they ask you, are you sure, they get you to question your perceptions. And for most people, that's all it takes to get them to doubt just enough to lend credence to the alternate version. You get them to say, I'm not sure, I'm confused, maybe this. When it comes to the Mandela effect, you have the added dynamic of the social group attached to it. If I believe in the hyphen in my Kit Kat logo, I'll have 1,000 new friends. We can talk about it all night. But if I don't, I'm a zombie that didn't make the cut. I didn't get cerned to a higher plane of awareness. So which one's the obvious pick? Well, when you look at any religion, it behooves you to believe in angels and to have your own experiences because you get clout within the group. So a lot of people are just Mandela affecting for clout, if you ask me. It's clout chasing. Oh, I remember Ed McMahon. In fact, my best friend's cousin inherited some money because his grandmother got one of those checks that they were passing out. You see how that works? It's clout. All right, this is Auto Hoax or GTFO. Thanks for joining. Thanks to all the callers, and thank you to the chat. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. You can go pick up Auto Hoaxology 101 at the link below.